Lead in, 1, 2, 3. Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Alright, if you didn't know, last week's episode was a joke. So anybody that's like, Dark Logos done lost his mind. No, I didn't lose my mind. And for anyone that's not in on the joke or a newer listener, pretty much last year I did a episode with called the Dimensional Scanner. Okay, you could probably look it up just in the episodes. Just type in like scanner or something or whatever. And and so I had my friend on the show, pretty much just pretending to be me. And let me see if I can find it here on my show list. Let's see. Nope, it doesn't pop up real easily. Anyway, so if you look at last year on like April 1st, that was the joke. Okay, so if you didn't see that, just go through my video archives and you'll be able to find it. Not that big a deal. So it should be like in the 120s. Actually, no, it actually should be probably higher than that, probably like 130s. Yeah. So, but anyway, I'm sort of like just skipping through real quick. See if I can find it. Avengers Podcaster ID card. Avengers Assembled. Gluttony and Dupe. Episode 137. Avengers Age heroclix Metamath. Here we go. It's labeled trying something while using my scanner. Okay, that's the name of the episode. Trying something while using my scanner. And it was published March 31st. So if you didn't get the joke, then yeah, that should have been the clue. But anyway, going on. Today's episode is a little bit of public information, trying to help everybody out, and a little bit of speculation. Of course, we're going to talk about post-retirement and what that means to you. And I'm gonna name off some people that made this episode possible. Number one, my boy Daniel joins, and he and I were able to talk a lot. My homie Dragon, Jamie Jordan, Caleb, and the whole Phoenix Nest crew, and I can't forget Mr. Will Holland, Dr. Will Holland. And so there's a whole group of information in which, from this whole entire like collaboration of people, I was able to sort of come up with some like little notes for you to keep in mind of going into June, and some things that a lot of people really haven't talked about, like the nuts and bolts of what we currently have and what we will need in the meta to push it forward, and where things are going to start costing us more or things are going to stay about the same. So let's sort of start from the beginning. If we look entirely at what we are losing, we're losing a lot of, number one, sub 100 points or less essential characters. You got your copycats, you got your Banshee. That's just gone, okay, and that's out of Deadpool. Of course, you have all your entities from War of Light, from Superman Legion of Superheroes. You have all your White Witch, which was really, really good. AVX, you're definitely losing all your like nice little good supporting stuff from there, like Magic. Wolverine from Wolverine to X-Men, Cerise, which was a staple in the meta for a long while, she's out of there. Egghead, King Tut, from Batman TV. Those are some really, really good figures right there as well. So, what does this mean? Okay. This means that, like, number one, with Banshee being out the meta, your ability to take away damage reduction goes down, like, greatly if you're looking at it from a team aspect, which means the stock of Power Cosmic and Quintessence goes up. Okay, just goes up big time. Not only that, Psychic Blast Pulse Wave stock goes up big time. Also, Mitzelplick being a bane in everybody's side does not have any easy counters or easy sort of negating factors such as Copycat. And so because of that, you're going to have a plan to deal with him. Cheap support, like I like Egghead because he just does a lot for 55 points. He's stupid level good. But he didn't catch on, unfortunately. And I even said this when I did the set review of Batman TV. Like, this guy is the boss. Not only that, you're losing Mr. Freeze with his control element of, hey, guess what, homie? You have Incap. That's gone. Alright, so with that being said, we need a new influx of cheapo good characters. And the question is where's that coming from? Of course, we're going to still have our Nighthawk Prime. That's still floating in there. But really, when we start looking at supporting characters, we're coming in at a disadvantage. And we have some advantages. So, again, looking at what we're losing, staying on that theme, another thing that we're losing is just a lot of big hitters. Like my John Stewart from War of Light, gone. I like the Superboy from Superman Legion of Superheroes. That's gone. Your Avengers, not Avengers, your Invisible Iron Man, #1 Iron Man, blasting through walls Iron Man, gone. Your Phoenix Buster Iron Man, gone. Your Thor in the Dark World, promote Thor. I like playing him, gone. Also, your I Bring the Pain Thor from Thor in the Dark World, gone. Your Captain America Winter Soldier, Cap in Widow Duo, gone. Your from Days of Future's Past Sentinel, gone. Weaponer Accord, gone. And then later on, and I haven't touched Guardians of the Galaxy because that has its own implications. The standard set, not the movie set. So when you start stacking stuff up, you see some very, very interesting trends. Okay? And one of those trends that I really want everyone to see, that it's a big deal, it's that our huge damage dealing characters are shifting to higher points instead of you being able to tap that real easily at lower points. Okay, so characters like Freddie Freeman become a lot more valuable, like a whole lot more valuable as the sets as time goes forward until it retires, because like he's super cheap for a very high damage output. So that's one thing that I want us to start looking at is how are we shifting our damage? How are we shifting our utilities? My poor, and I do mean poor, composite Superman, once June hits, it will be severely nerfed in the, subcockles. So it's not that great for him. Like he doesn't have anything but like Lana Lang and Jimmy Olsen, which that just sucks. So anyway, going forward, what are we sort of resetting to? Okay, and there's going to be some big emphasis here. So one thing that we can definitely know if you're looking at Origins and such is, number one, we still have Guardians of the Galaxy standard set, and Guardians of the Galaxy standard set keeps us moderately in line. We still have Mantis, we still have Major Victory, we still have Captain Marvel Prime. The Dire Wraiths actually start looking a little good. Just a little. I didn't say they were the greatest thing since sliced bread, but they're starting to look a little good because they're actually viable to use. Okay? Keep going through this really quick. Alpha primitives. Also, what's his name? Crap, I forgot his name. Oh, Maximus, that's it. Maximus is still very viable in the meta, being able to summon in a bunch of guys. And then, of course, we can't forget all the silliness that Star-Lord gave us, and also Shriek, Daniel Joines figure. Now, here's the thing. Shriek definitely falls off without the sniper rifle and becomes a really, really big finesse piece. And that's really what Daniel wanted. He didn't even know about the sniper rifle. The sniper rifle just made Shriek OP. Then, of course, you have Proxima Midnight, which is still super good. And you have, I think, Bill... No. Bill's going to retire. That's another, like, cheapo support piece that's really good that we're going to lose. Okay? And then you also have the big bad monster himself, Super Skrull. Super Skrull. And the zombie team base. And the zombie team base definitely is the only team base for Origins. Oh, no, it's not. It's a Triniusin and the Spider-Man and Super Friends. Amazing Friends team base. So we have that. All right. So what are we seeing in this Grand Purge? And again, we're still going to lose these guys in July at proper retirement. So what are we really seeing? Number one, Lantern's gone. Okay, with the Lanterns gone, a lot of viability goes away. Our Thane and our Thanosai is no longer viable because they're, on their way out after their long, walk in the sun. Our Dr. Spectrums are gone. The Beyonder tech was just starting to take off right when, at the prime of his life, only to be snuffed out like a candle in the wind. So we're bound for a huge paradigm shift, just like every retirement. But also, I would like to say is, really a lot of just cheap ways of doing things is, going away. But we still have some other cheap options. So let's start looking at what we do have. Okay, what we do have, and then building from there. All right. All right. So let's get crack-a-lackin'. All right. The first thing that I always end up looking at is usually stats, but we're not going to do that. We're going to look at powers, and the powers are really, really interesting because there's a couple of characters that really are going to dictate how we're going to be playing. So what I'm going to do is you can put into your unit finder, point cost less than 55 points. Because 55 points is like the new inflated version of support. And we're going to look at Perplex first, then we're going to look at Probability Control and Outwit. Now we're not going to look at support because support got Doc Magnus, and yeah, that's some of the cheapest support that we've had in years since like Doc Midnight. Like, oh gosh, like so good. Anyway, so let's go ahead and look at Perplex. Now I use Firefox, and anybody that's like used to listening to the show knows that Firefox does not like me some days with AC Realms. But today it seems to be acting right, so we're good. So we're looking for Perplex on first click only. Now you might say, but Dark Logos I push. That's a waste of actions. You want it up front. Okay, so we got Mysterio from Prize Support. He gives us the Sinister Syndicate TA, Smoke Cloud, some Stealth, Super Senses, and Perplex. He has a cool trait. The Mysteries of the Mind. Mysterio begins the game with 2 illusion tokens. Modify Mysterio's defense by +1 for each illusion token on this card. Alright, sweet. He can get up to an 18 defense for 50 points. I don't really want to go anything further than that. But he can make like Mysterio bystander tokens and stuff. Alright. Alright, so let's keep going. Now, I will say this Mysterio might also show up for multiple other reasons, just mainly these bystander tokens, and how they might work with somebody's team. So I'm just saying there's potential there. Alright, next up is Iron Man from Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's coming in at 50 points as well. It's that dang Iron Man I hate so much because WizKids pretty much did team-based BS without giving us a team base for how much it costs to build this Hulkbuster armor. And this Iron Man is required on top of everything else, so you can pilot the darn thing. So yeah, I'm not Jolly Green Giant on this one. Now the main thing that we're looking at this is, this Iron Man is probably one of the better perplexers coming in at 50 points because he's giving us shield TA. He's a flyer that can carry. He has an 8 range, so he can perplex from really, really, really far away. Energy explosion, 2 targets. Energy shield deflection, so he has a 19 defense from range, possibly a 20 max. And then he has perplex. So that's really good. So you're able to say if his role is pure support and getting people around the field and moving them and whatnot, he can perpetually move them with sidestep until his last click at click 4. He's really hard to hit. He has a nice damage power. He has good defenses, and if he needs to just sit and take a power action to increase damage output, he can for a range combat attack. Now, just think about this. This one character can up your range, up your damage, and also perplex up whatever stat that you need to have, whatever stat you need to have. So that right there creates this awesome, little micro combo that we didn't see, besides the likes of Weasel. Okay. Now, yes, shield TA, for increasing the damage does cost an action. I understand. I fully understand that. But I do also think that if you plan it right in 300, that might not be an issue. I'm just saying I'm going to hold on to that might, quote unquote, it might not be an issue. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead, move down the line. Next at 50 points is Age of Ultron Ant-Man number 3 at the rookie dial. Now he starts with perplex, and the reason that I'm looking at him is, number one, he's tiny. He has combat reflexes. He has improved target, ignores hindering terrain, ignores characters. He has the morph ability, so he can, morph into one of your other Ant-Mans to generate ants. Okay, and then you have temporary pin particles. Ant-Man can use charge, sidestep, and stealth. Give Ant-Man a free action, and an adjacent friendly character with a starburst damage symbol has either tiny symbol, giant symbol, or giant symbol until your next turn. So he has the ability to morph people's sizes, which, in all honesty, is going to become more and more important in the meta here. Okay, and the reason I'm saying this is because by having the ability to change sizes, you're able to make a standard character see over outdoor blocking with improved targeting, or you're able to make sure that a standard character can now hide behind, another tiny character. So there's a lot of good stuff here that we can see with this Ant-Man. Okay, and on top of everything else, he has perplex. He also has that precision strike, but you're not really going to do too much with that precision strike. Okay. Goliath is okay, but you're never going to use him. I'm going to be honest. Next up is Jarvis, which I think realistically is probably the most bang for your buck, just for the pure fact that you get 3 ID cards on top of everything else for his cost. Okay, just 3 ID cards for 40 points, and you get a perplexer that's 4 clicks deep, and has stealth and Avengers TA, so he can always get to wherever he needs to get without worrying about taking away from your action pool. Also, he has that cool little tidy up trait, and he also has that Heart of the Avengers trait, which is worth looking at. I've covered those before, so I'm not going back over those. Alright, next up is Avengers Age of Ultron movie Scarlet Witch. Now, the reason I like this character in the terms of support is one thing, pure and simple. You can pretty much end up taking some damage, boost all of your stats, and then still perplex something. I mean, boost all of your one of your friendly character stats, and then also perplex something else up. Now, you might say, Dark Logos, that's a little expensive to do all that. Yeah, it sort of is. But if you don't want to do that, you also have a 8 range stealth willpower attacker. So if that doesn't float your boat, then that definitely should. I mean, uh, it, it when we look at the ranges for these support powers, 8 is really good. Iron Man is the only other 8 that we have. I think Mysterio's a 6 for perplex. Ant-Man's going to most likely be a 6 for perplex. Jarvis is going to be a 6 for perplex. So you have an 8 range perplex, which allows you to place her a lot more defensively if you're trying to just buff your own team. Or you can be a lot more offensively seeing into the backfield if you're bringing Scarlet Witch into the foreground. So there is that. All right, now keep going down, and we have the Fast Forces Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice 50-point Batman. Now he has perplex plus the Superman TA in stealth, so he can perplex people down through stealth. I mean, it's okay. Like, it's not the best of characters. He has a dual target incapacitate, which is pretty nice. This character here, there's from the Fast Forces, not from the Fast Forces, from the actual Batman versus Superman set, that Lex Luthor for 45 points is giving you prob in perplex on that one click only. I know, but that right there is really strong, really strong. Plus, he's giving you the Underworld TA. So, I definitely want to consider. Yeah, it's Lex Luthor, yeah. Then from the Fast Forces, from that movie Fast Forces, we also have... the Fast Forces Lex isn't bad because you have Stealth, TK, Willpower, and Perplex, and a Calculator TA, and some good keywords for you to build off of. But I think that you can do a little bit better. I like Scarlet Witch just a bit better. I like Iron Man just a bit better. But if you need a wild card, this Lex Luthor is going to be it. Of course, I know this is a little. I know he's a lot of people have him on his radar, on your radar. Is 10. 10 is 50 points. He does a lot for robot teams, in my opinion. Definitely if you're able to get another Metal Man on the field. He's able to modify anything but damage by +2 if there's another Metal Man nearby. And I think it's Copper's 25 points. And I think Mercury's 25 points. I might be wrong on that, on Copper. But having those two together... Well, at least 10 and Mercury gives you a decent cheap TK and a potential super perplex to overcome some of your stat problems that you're going to be dealing with. And I'm going to go into stats really quick later on. All right, and then really in comes our cheapest perplex at just total, and that's Jimmy Olsen. And Jimmy Olsen comes in at 25 points. You're not getting the transform into Turtle Boy ability. And you're just getting perplexed. You also have that World Needs to Know power as well to get rid of your opponent's shape change and super senses, which might also be another reason we will see Jimmy Olsen a little bit more in the meta. It's going to be very, very cautious play, but to get rid of your opponent's super senses and shape change completely, that's a really strong ability. All right, so you can start to see that we're paying at least 50 points for Perplex unless we're using Jimmy Olsen. I'm sorry, we're at least paying 25 points for Perplex for Jimmy Olsen. Then our next, point up is 45. And then from that point on, we're looking at way higher points. Definitely looking at 50 to 55 points. Which means that your team composition, if you're going to incorporate just like a pure Perplex or just needing on the first click, it's going to cost you a good chunk of your points. You can't just come in and be like, yep, I'm going to get it for cheap. Also, once retirement happens, just getting like easy Perplex or cheap Perplex really isn't going to happen. Okay? So you got to consider that as well, at least through your resources. All right, so let's go ahead look at less than 55 points for probability control, because this is really going to be the real major problem that we're going to see. And I need to put it on first click only. It's like the moment Sky shows up, I know I have a problem. All right, so what we're going to notice really, really quickly, guess what? There's nothing in Marvel. Nothing. Because you're going to see like Guardians of the Galaxy, Deadpool, Fast Forces, and Wolverine and the X-Men. Okay? So you see right there, we have a problem, Houston. Alright, so that drops us all the way down to Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice set, where we are paying 40 points for Lois Lane. Now again, copy and paste that 45 point Lex Luthor, you can see why he is definitely going to be worthwhile. But you can see Lois is giving us Superman TA, Stealth, and Prob. Now this Prob is at a 6 range, so that's fine. She later goes on to Plasticity and Perplex and Super Senses. That's fine. Overall, most likely if anyone hits Lois, is going to be for KO. So, yeah. Next up is the Wizard, and the Wizard is 50 points. And I do think that he is probably going to be one of the more interesting support figures that we're going to see popping up, mainly for the fact that, yes, he has a 6 range. He's a 10 attack, 3 damage, which means that he's viable. He also has Mystical and Pass Keyword, because no one's hardly ever going to use him for Injustice Society or Secret Society of Supervillains, unless you're playing around with Amanda Waller. Let's be real with it, okay? Then you take it a step further, and the Wizard has the ability to generate tigers. Now those tigers are not OP, but they're good enough to really mess with your opponent. So when we look at it, you know, when all said and done, yes, he has to make his shape change to get the tiger out and all the other stuff. But I really gotta say, traded shape change, 5 clicks deep, 50 points, has Prob up front, can get Outwit, can get Perplex. It's not bad. If this is where WizKids is going, this figure is probably one of those foundational figures that people are going to be like, yeah, I need 2 of those. I don't need 3, but I at least need 2 going forward for certain teams. Definitely if you're looking at a mystical theme team right now, immediately. Also, he's a little bit Nick Fury proof, because he can, not have lines of fire drawn to him if he is in hindering or next to blocking terrain, which is really solid if you think about it, that he can be set up even on your opponent's turn. On your turn in prob or attack, and he can't be targeted. So that's pretty strong. So overall, you can even see that the tech out there for creating really solid proppers is really good. But it's still expensive, and the thing that you're looking at is Mystical once again is sort of dominating everything, and this means that your Mystical theme teams are going to be looked at a lot more closely than they were before in the tech development, and I think that's a bit frustrating. I'm not going to say it's short-sighted, but I do think that when you're looking at your resets and you're looking at your blocks, you have to ask yourself, hey, what is it going to look like after we reset? And how are people actually thinking about, what's the process in which they look at figures? And even if you look at, say, Spectre, for example, coming in at 35 points, KC Spectre on his low point click, it's nice. It has a lot of versatility. You even have Mystics, but no damage reduction. I just plop a poison person next to him, and that's it. He's gone. Poof. Up in smoke. Like Cheech and Chong. So there's some there are a lot of elements here for us to really just sort of step back and say, like, is this good? Is this a good thing? So, Spectre, the Wizard, those are our main probbers. We also have Clark Kent, which is okay. I mean, and again, we also have access to that Lex Luthor, again, 45 points, but you're really looking at his best keywords being Metropolis. Yeah, let me just verify that. Lex Luthor, boop, 45 points. Celebrity, Metropolis, Politician, Superman Revenge Squad. So yeah, Metropolis Theme Team is his best keyword. And that's really, really pushing it. So I really I don't see him being used for his keywords that often. So just anyway. So like I said, let's go ahead and look at our next major category, which is going to be is not probability control, outwit. Now, I will say this: accountable. He doesn't show up on not on WizKids, on 8C Realms properly, unfortunately. Just like how Alexander Luthor doesn't show up when you're looking for prob properly, or perplex, because of the special power. But when we start looking at on first click for outwit, we got our Donatello and Baxter Stockman show up. Baxter can be really interesting if we start looking at him. It's not Fly Baxter, it's human black guy Baxter, who will be going most likely on my Black History Month team next year. Probably going to have a high guarantee. I might have to make a note, like Ronin KJS tells me, of all the African American characters as they come out. But anyway, as you can see, coming in at 30 points, he's really good. He also has the ability to possibly bring in more Mausers. And that's pretty nice. But you have to start paying for Mausers at the beginning, but whatever. Then you just keep going, and you're looking at Agent Coulson at 50 points from Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Fast Forces, which is okay. Then you also have the S.H.I.E.L.D. Paranormal Investigator, which again is okay. The main one I think that is going to probably see more play from Marvel's side is going to be Simmons, if you're just looking for cheap outwit, and then also the Hank Pym Ant-Man coming in at 50 points. Just up front, outwit is right there. So I think that's really useful for us to build around. Definitely, I really like that Ant-Man. Is a really good option. You can bring in Giant Man at 50 points. Now this Giant Man is number 44, not the one from the box set. You're going to get shot. You're going to get straight shot. So just be ready for it. And as long as you're ready to deal with those problems, then good for you. But if not, there's problems ahead. When we look on the DC side, we're going to automatically see is from the World's Finest Fast Forces, Batman at 50 points, starting off, being able to play the weapons drop, no matter what type of team he's on. That's really strong, just for 50 points. Then peak human conditioning, when Batman has no action tokens, he can use running shot. When he has one action token, he can use charge. When he has two action tokens, he can use sidestep. So he's always sort of mobile. And then Batman can use toughness and willpower as his special power up front. So for 50 points, you're getting a lot of mobility. You're getting access to the weapons drop, which you could possibly arm on Batman, but technically it's a sort of a waste. But mainly you're looking at him as a character that can boost a Superman. And also he has that trait, World's Finest Heroes. If Batman is adjacent to a friendly character named Superman, Batman can use probability control, but only to re-roll a friendly character's attack roll. So that's sort of nice as a little added utility that you're able to add in the weapons drop for Superman, plus also outwit for Superman, and also prob for Superman. That's a lot of utility for 50 points. Okay, let's move on. Platinum. Platinum. Platinum is going to be a really great utility figure, mainly first off because of defend, and we'll get to the number issue a little later about that 18 defend. Then the outwit, and then if you play any more metalmen, you're also getting that ability to use outwit. When she does, she can choose an additional power to counter on the target, so she could possibly outwit 2 powers on a target, which is great because again, if you're teaming up with 10 or Mercury on your team, this can be really strong. It also makes the robot keyword way better than what it was previously. Also, we're looking at 25-point Batman for outwit from the Kingdom Come Batman. We already know what he does with his decent range. Superman from Superman Wonder Woman set, there's Lois Lane. This Lois is a little OP, just for her level of protection. But she works. You can mix a plick and play with her size, and she can get +1. I mean, she can see over elevated and all that other stuff. And she has the I learn secrets. That's my job. At the beginning of your turn, you may choose an opposing character within 4 squares in line of fire until your next turn. That character can't use team abilities. So that's really, really, really nice. We keep going. Counterattack Colossal Retaliation Solaris. That 2 movement is really the problem. That's really the problem. If you can find a way to get around that 2 movement, then good for you. Otherwise, Solaris is pretty much a sitting duck the entire time until a Colossal Retaliation goes off, and then he plops into place and just stays there. So that's an issue as well. People might come back and revisit the Argus Researcher at 40 points. And again, you can't sleep on Accountable. I know he doesn't show up, but definitely Accountable. I really like that. And I think also the Bruce Wayne is worth it too. From Batman versus Superman from the Target set, because I think you can access outwit from the Batman dial if you have it like on the side or something. Anyway, but you have the Argus Researcher, and he has Green Room, Dimensional Tesseracts. Give Argus Researcher a power action this turn. Argus Researcher can use improved targeting, ignores elevated terrain, ignores blocking terrain, and friendly characters' range values are a minimum of 8 when using outwit, perplex, or probability control. So he can pretty much just boost up the rest of your team when using any of your support powers and increasing those ranges to 8. So I think people are going to start looking at that Argus Researcher again and saying like, maybe I messed up during the Flash set. Maybe I should have bought, that Argus Researcher or try to get him off of eBay or something. So that's it. Now here's what we're looking at again. Okay, Scientists is really dominating outwit. We see Simmons, coming in, Scientist. We got the Hank Pym, Scientist. I don't think Justin Zephyr has Scientist. Nope, he doesn't. Then we have Batman from Kingdom Come Batman. He's Detective, Future, Gotham City, Batman Family armor, which is sort of nice with the armor. We have Platinum with Robot, and some people say like, hey, Brain, but Brain's really on top of Monster Mala. So yeah. What else? Lois Lane powering up Reporter. So we don't see really how can I put it? We don't see a real super abuse. Oh, I forgot. Justice League Trinity War, The Outsider. pretty much giving you prop through CSA and then outwit through on the dial. And yeah, he can lower the cost of your Pandora's box as well, but that's sort of a, you know, added bonus if you're playing Pandora's box. But I think it also inflates his points. Then he has hidden in our midst Outsider King's Mastermind when he does friendly characters within 6 squares that are not within any opposing character's line of fire are considered adjacent in a lower point value. So he can just sort of shift it off to anybody. So that's pretty cool. So I know some of you might have said previously, well, what about Atomica for prop? Yep, Atomica's still good for prop, but I think we're going to start counting our action tokens a little bit more, and that's why I don't think the team prop is going to be as good as it was previously, because we're looking at teams now in which we can fit 4 and 5 characters on a team in 300 points, and I'm not just talking limited, and have them be viable since the big boogie woman of Copycat is gone. So we can start looking at a lot more flexible, a lot more viable teams, which also will lead to the Supermans and tent poles coming out. But that's one of the great diversity elements that's going to arise, because eventually that always leads to the synthesis or the most efficient 2 or 3 figure teams. So there's just some things to consider. Now, what I want you to look at again with the Holy Trinity is that we don't have a lot of options starting off, which means that min-maxing and trying to get all the powers on the team is going to be more difficult. Not only that, another element that is a bit is there is you're not getting stat bumps from your resources. So major stat bumps from your resources. So like if we look at what's left, and I know some of you might say like, hey, Dark Logos, there's a lot more information to cover. I'm like, yeah, I know, but the show's after I cover the resources, I'll probably end up having to talk more about the meta next week, more about stats, because stats are huge. But going on about resources, when we go back to our resources, we have a few amount of resources. So let's sort of start off in the beginning. And I know some people might say like, hey, look at the special objects as well. And I really, really just don't want to, because they're only really playable within limited format for rock, because you can't even use the relics. So anyway, so you start off and you have to really, before you look at Pandora's Box or Rock of Eternity, you really just have to look at the sins, because the sins are what makes those resources. And when you start noticing that you're just getting +2 to defense, and how useful that can be, it can be interesting, because we're seeing less 12s, okay, that's going to be in the game. At the same time, when you're seeing less 12s, we're also seeing less 20s and more 19s and 18s. So that means that our stat wall functionally, in most cases is dropping down from, that high 23 down to a 21 or 22, which is really interesting, because now you're looking at viable attacks, attackers being at 10 attack again. If you have an 18 defense is going to be the average defense that you're looking at hitting. So 10 attack does become viable, because you can boost the 10 attack up with perplex, or lower down defenses with PD or anything else. So there's that. But when you start looking also like in depth, you're seeing a little bit of negation, but you're not seeing anything that's making you have stat bumps or stat bumps in offensive nature. Just stuff that's defensive and utility. When you're looking at Pandora's Box offers a little bit of some coolness in terms of additional powers added, but nothing really that adds a lot of strength to your team until you get to third eye possessed, which is centers modify their combat values by +1. Centers can use improved movement, ignores elevated, ignores hindering terrain, ignores blocking terrain, destroys blocking terrain as the character moves through it, improved targeting, ignores elevated terrain, ignores hindering terrain, ignores blocking terrain. So pretty much they just ignore everything. And modify their speed and range values by +2. So pretty much their movement is capped and their range value is capped. Okay, so that's really nice, but that's the only time that you're really getting a stat bump. But so what you're really looking back at is that you have a defense value. If you still have a sin and it's viable, you're getting cap defense. You're getting +1 really attack, and you're getting +1 damage. But you're having a larger range, which is really more defensive, and you have a cap range, which is more defensive, and you also have a cap speed, which again is really more defensive. Can turn into an offense just depending on how the team's built. But most of the powers that you're getting on either path aren't too offensive, except when you get to 5 sins and you're getting range combat expert or close combat expert, and you're getting those. Like, that's it. That's the only time that you can possibly get a damage buff, and that is a little bit troublesome. But if you do get that damage buff, you're most likely not getting third eye possessed. So then you also have like Gateway to Earth, which is centers modify combat values by +1. Centers can use Mystics team ability once per game. Choose another DC team ability. Centers can use that team ability when they can use this power. So okay. So modify values. Okay, so never mind. So anyway, so Pandora's Box, I think the main concern for Pandora's Box really is the setup time and the tokening of the characters and how slow that it can make a team. There's nothing like Split Lip to make Pandora's Box faster, which I think everybody was sort of waiting for, and it never came. Just because I think they realized previously with the Book of the Skulls how Split Lip made Book of the Skulls way more powerful than what it should have been. So you look at Rock of Eternity. Rock of Eternity doesn't give any stat bumps outside of what the entities give, but at the same time it gives powers once you're able to get all your sins attached and take the double power action to turn into Shazam, which really sucks. But not having a stat bump really and just having some replacement values, while it's not the best, it's not bad either. Definitely considering that when you turn to Shazam, getting that 8 range is pretty good. And then also your quintessence, I think. So probability control, pulse wave, running shot, mystics, team ability, wing symbol, indomitable, and your champion's range value of 8 if its printed value is less. So you really looking back at like your different paths for your Rock of Eternity, you'll see some things notably missing. One thing in particular that never mind. I see it. Close combat expert and range combat expert. I was about to say, like, you just don't see close combat expert and range combat expert. But never mind. It is there, so I was wrong. So, right there, what do we see? We see that, like, getting huge stat bumps are really difficult. And that's just 2 of the resources. When we start looking at utilizing the round table or the teleporter, we're back at the same thing. You can get stat bumps, but you can't get permanent stat bumps or even getting some sort of consistent thing going to either help your whole team real easily, or something that's just going to be like stacking various different stats. So you can't be like with using the round table or the teleporter, like, oh, okay, I can get +2 defense to close combat attacks. Okay, great. Now that, now I have that through whoever card. Okay, so great. But I really need an attack buff as well. So you can't really get that with the round table. So that it creates problems. And then you have the Quinjet, and the Quinjet just doesn't boost stats at all. You have the option of playing at a higher point value or a lower point value, it as a vehicle, and just bringing in ID cards. And that's nice, and you're utilizing a swarm tech, and that's really great. But I think the real problem comes in, that a lot of people don't want to admit right now, is that what's the next step to bring that Quinjet into the forefront, into a more accessible play style. I think one of the problems right now is just it's too easy to hit. It's just way too easy to hit. Now again, with Copycat being gone, the lower point value of the Quinjet becomes a lot more viable. But again, when you got Shazam zipping around the board with the Ultra Heavy, and then all of a sudden your resources cracked like at opening shot, like what do you do? So you can start to see the problems that we're coming into, is that resources are granting minor powers, minor abilities, okay, some utility, but they're not end all be all. Now, what this means then is, as team builders, we have to say, all right, if the attack values aren't super high, on average, and defense is coming down, and things that are more viable are coming out, and we can't get crazy stat bumps from resources, then that means, your figures are generating your stat bumps. It goes back to being more figure focused than it is being add-on focused. And if you look at our current entities that we have, we're not getting crazy stats like we were from the previous batch of entities, from the War of Light entities. We're not getting crazy powers like War of Light entities. And that's really one of the reasons why I think Night Lantern actually will be meta after the reset, because you're going to need diversity of powers, and Night Lantern gives you that at a cost of your prime slot. And once you start stacking those diversity of powers, then you can have some level of creativity that might actually break something, because you're not bound to the standard looky here, these 4 entities or 5 entities you're using for everything. Because ask yourself this: how many people really use Predator? I'm looking at mine and I'm like, I can't really think how many times I used them myself. So that's mostly it. I know that, of course, we're going to have the Punisher van. I don't think we're going to have a resource for Civil War, which I would be really happy if we didn't. And I think WizKids might actually be toning back on the resource element or the resource mechanic, unless the Turtle van is a resource and they just haven't told us yet, which you can't put it above WizKids. So, yeah. Next show, I need to talk about stats and the stat information that's changed and why it's important. So, that's it for today's show. You can follow me on Twitter. It came from outer space and told me, man, your stomach feels sick. You need to go do something about that. You can find my random musings or whenever there's a new show. That's it. That's what Twitter's for. Then you can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it pithy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Tell me what you think about retirement. Yeah, just tell me what you think about retirement. Then, really, if you want to buy a Phoenix Nest shirt or a Starting Over podcast shirt, you can go inside of this the little description box below and get a link to buy t-shirts. That's it. Starting to feel a little ill. Also, it's getting late, so thanks for listening. And remember, we all have to start over sometime.